Still Ben-Baravagina.
Mm-hmm.
Is it already over at BSW campus?
BW's campus, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's been sent. Let me know when it was.
Not quite yet.
Everyone good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, I'm not gonna get.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, I'm good to go.
Plan, the United States will not provide military aid to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates of Paul 1018. Hold the U.S. Armed Forces of Saudi Arabia and funding training and advisory role in coordination with the military of Saudi Arabia advantages Yemen and harms the military of Saudi Arabia makes exclusive of genocide story 18. Yemen is facing genocide and starvation orchestrated by the Saudis with the full support and publicity from the United States, where approximately 13 million people are facing starvation. We need to come to terms with our arms, arms, keep boys means to terms, keeping suffering, terrorism, torture, and burden, such now lay ruin and engage on people all trust without a test approval and this military aid. Here's real politics entails bombing and starving innocent Yemeni children. Christoph 926. The UN is called the world's worst humanitarian crisis, and we know that American bombs striking Yemeni school bus killing 21 people, American bombs kills 155 martyrs at the funeral, 97 people, and American children are survived to be sent for the rest of their lives, physically and mentally, behaviors are unconscionable. It's not just a case for humanitarian suffering, it's a price for winning war notes, winning safe for extreme schools, like thriving as the US fighting arms, intelligent area review, and suicide setting, with the extraterrestrial economy and start to be blast. We are politics because we dislike Iran's ayatollahs, we are willing to starve Yemeni school children, but we're provided with weapons we want to extend suffering. The war has created a health crisis and drives terrorist recruitment. The US could stop it at any time. War 17. Bombing and blockade have caused cholera epidemic is the largest fast-spreading outbreak of disease in modern history. The million cases expected by the end of the year, nearly 600,000 children affected malnutrition will cause proportionally 80% of the Yemen's population lacks reliable access to food. The use of the Saudi Air Force cannot operate without American support. Robin said here need to kill dozens of innocent Muslims drive recruitment for terrorist groups. Solvency. Withdrawal of U.S. military support will stop the bomb campaign. Delta Lindsay 1026. The kingdom depends almost entirely on U.S. armed supplies being constrained and provides for a relative substitute which invest in the U.S. weapons to include such Russian or Chinese substitutes without the U.S. intelligence war to suppress the bomb and quickly at the end. U.S. withdrawal of military aid will just with the peace process drawing in allies. Baz 18. Saudi Arabia and its allies were to accept peace process and include the U.S. will support an open-ended war for the military system required to keep the war apparatus going. And the AC's condemnation of atrocities is a key line in and internalizing specific goal. Utilitarian rationalizations makes atrocity and nuclear war more likely. Nagel 72. It is not allowed to do certain things such as killing civilians. No argument of what will happen if it doesn't make children no doom would be ready. Of course, this program started useful measures to such things to reduce the civilian population by starvation or massacre, restoration, not deliberate. Whether such measure justifies some unfamiliar with the United States, such a right imagine the utilitarian arguments suffice to determine measures of source, but such consider assurance sufficient to prevent an enormous anti-population messages to make considerable serious more possibility since once doors open for calculation of utility and national interest, these population can be brought to bear and erase the consequences of those responsible for a certain number of charged babies and recognition of the victims of atrocities is a prerequisite for morale and dehumanization is the impact magnified. No trust because utilitarianism magnitude the consequences masked by dehumanization. But Law 3, there can be radically different ways in which human vulnerability is distributed across the world. Certain laws we highly protect other laws and not friction that set limits for the kind of laws we can about an insurrectional level ontology whose lives those around the world being negated again and again. On the level of discourse, some laws are considered lives and all their dehumanization lives of physical violence, literacy, humanization, already working with culture, attached to those children, how to have a life that qualifies for recognition, endorse and access ethical system is key, ethical prerequisites, pre-figure responses to security, challenges, shape, or fundamental worldviews, no way to calculate the cost and benefits without first establishing an ethical baseline to judge what's an acceptable outcome, recognition of the atrocities, and pre-fee advantage to affirming of working all 14. This 20th century was a chronic and endemic insecurity, whether to fight extremes by systemic violation of international laws, human rights, ethical commitment, shape security, relations, outcome, compromise, ethics, contributed to security, good, ethical outcomes, made proof situation, how this question answer in the real world, results of particular ethical frameworks, and results of which ethical dilemmas are posed by the kind of security when how we provide security is the very first ethical question for our case. A specific moral decision as a constitutional choice available to us, our particular ethical commitments, optional limits, and imperatives of listening and policy world, please make not competing ethical practices necessary and important today. More systemic violations of peace, justice, and human flourishing must eliminate the need to resort to violence, reals, equals to national security, is ultimate that the security of individuals is invisible to ethics contained in everything we do in the area of possibility, scrutiny for ability to human beings hinges on an act for just kill, save, rationalization, the direct current false, the logic is the basis for colonialism, slavery, and genocide. Standards 3. Thus, the illusion that we try to save humanity by destroying a house that colonialism and African slaves, and the primitive imperial struggles that colonial wars, neoliberalism, sacrifice, genocide, and Russian totalitarian logic that no other alternatives to power, present neurology, and problems arise from failing to take its logic. The logic is based on superstition of total power and knowledge, not the radical questioning of alternatives, aims to infinitely reproduce the status quo and educators have an ethical obligation to counter the discourse that produces acquiescence or paradigms, particular historical practice that are nationalist militarism as a mechanism for restore the result of impacts. Angles 13. We must instruct students in public safety about the right position for most vital contribution and critique of that source involving murder, infrastructure overriding the station's general feeling recognizing where the powers will work to contribute where actors only need to go about the daily routines of violence and war actors with condition of symbolic landscape of resistance violence needs with better to normalize war perpetuating the structure of public systems or simply miss themselves citizens the sound with rhetoric of acquiescence these ends of war the provincial must not be challenged authors who have place their own responsibility acquiescence for rhetoric vessel war by facilitate war by shutting down career schools must bring their violence more to the open criticism if an impediment to reactivate the acquiescence of the public assuming the world is inherently violent makes it so anarchies with the states make it when 92 the real special lines read by self-help and treating them as separate from policies which is sustained by practicing collective authorship their identities and introduces the realist denies competitive power rules steps to make them probable where they are supposed to solve realism themselves for props in the underview their dishouse will be ridiculous. A is ethics use implicit in incinerating starving and children apply very high standards proof to any rationalization of that policy. B contract probability false probabilities long long chains from negative net probability that is delivered to value. C is causal direction will say the fractional probability of huge impact still is large effect value and only is low probability nearly impossible to determine the directional link does about 5 properties because a hurricane prevented our inability to determine the direction of that probability links means we should probably disregard them because they don't guide decision making. D is complex in the December presents simplistic deterministic narratives best would have the merit of competing against a disruptor results fully change in the December most important of these probability actions in the world will recognize the dangerous path they're on take for action steps to change course. E.g. Kennedy and Khrushchev back down during the Cuban Missile Crisis. E is decision paralysis. Every course of action in action has a negligible probability of causing extinction that makes it impossible to prioritize and averting existential risk over everything else. Essential risk is unavoidable. We have no chance but to prioritize realistic probabilities.
Alright, you read everything, right?
Yeah.
Is everyone ready?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so the solvency section, you underline the card as the kingdom depends almost entirely on U.S. forces, but the ununderlined part literally says U.S., British, and French.
Which part are you talking about?
The first one in the solvency section.
Sure.
So why would they not also just continue the war with French and British supplies? That's
Okay,
what your
so
evidence
there's
says.
a couple reasons. One is that they do get like supplies from the French and the British, but like the British is like 31 million of like aid and all sorts of support to Saudi Arabia, not specifically in the Yemen war where U.S. military and U.S. military.
Where is this in the app? Like, this doesn't seem to be present in the evidence that you've read.
Sure, it's in this evidence. Like the kingdom depends almost entirely upon the arms supplies. U.S. withdrawal of military aid will jumpstart the peace process, so Saudi Arabia is more likely to accept a peace process.
So my question is just, where is the dependency stuff? These are just like assertions from like very short pieces of evidence.
That's not true. Like the evidence qualifies it in a couple ways. One is, I would point to like the Bazzi evidence, which talks about specifically in the peace process, like U.S. support is key because it signals like a support of the Yemen crisis. Two is that they need like U.S. weapons specifically to keep the war apparatus going, like U.S.
Yeah, so that's part
systems are,
is there like a
the most
number or
advanced
percentage or like anything in any of this stuff?
So it's not like a numbers claim, but rather that they need our specific weapons to keep the war
Let's talk about the Angles 13 evidence. It says educators have an obligation to like prioritize critiques of rhetorical practices, but you also read like a plan with an advantage. Can you reconcile this?
So we say that there's like, it's bad to distinguish between like pre and post fiat. So we say that our reading of the plan is a good thing because we justify that by like supposing that the good actions that the plan like purports are good things to suggest within a debate space. We say doing the plan is good because it's a good educational practice in our like discourse about the plan.
So independent of whether the plan is a good idea or has a good outcome, we should still vote aye because you read it in debate?
No, not because we read it, but rather because what we like talk about is a good policy to support.
So
like,
so how can like could the plan be a bad idea and we still vote aye?
Can I just continue answering your question? Right.
Go for it.
So like the judge never actually like does a plan, but rather votes on the discourse that you have in the round. So like the discourse is determined by the post fiat like implementation, if that's what you talk about, of the plan, right? So like pre-fiat and post-fiat are the same in a debate round because the judge just votes on
if the plan does more bad than good, can we still vote aye because of this discourse surrounding it?
We say that like if you prove that the discourse, i.e. the plan, and the discourse we use is bad, then no, you shouldn't vote aye.
I have to disprove both the consequences of the plan and the discourse of the affirmative?
Well, we say they're connected, right? So if you say that like the plan leads to really bad things, like increases colonialism or something like that, sure, you can win the debate.
If I impact to colonialism, I win the debate? I'm kind of confused about
how
how
this
this
is going to play out. You can like do your own impact framing and NC.
I'm asking about your impact framing though.
Sure, I don't you seem to keep repeating like the same question.
Yeah, that's fine, I'll serve it up.
Okay.
Is it 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Will you defend Congress as the plan?
No.
So who does
It's
the plan?
just the entire like government, so the executive and Congress.
Executive and Congress.
Yeah.
235. Five, and then case, I would just flow it top down. Or actually, I'll signpost on case, like framing, plan, solvency, like advantage.
I haven't gotten it yet, so give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Okay. Interpretation: the affirmative may not defend any military aid to Saudi Arabia violation. That's the aft. The Senate already voted on this to do this. That's Davis and Schmidt, 1213. The Senate voted to end American military assistance for Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen, a rare move to limit presidential war powers. Congress take for Mr. Trump's support of Saudi Arabia when Democrats take control of the House. The action indicated growing sense of urgency among the lawmakers. Both parties to punish Saudi Arabia for Khashoggi's death and question the tradition of Western reverting its gaze from human rights abuse in the interest of a strategically important relationship. And the act may be technically inherent, but not the attitude or the surrounding. And the attitude and surrounding inclination is not. There's clearly momentum to do the plan. The Republican Senate already voted yes, which means the Democrats probably will too when the shutdown is over. Kills negative ground. The outcome almost definitely won't be inherent. If you must, the majority of nightcraft can be skirted. This sounds like terror that rely on one-off events to trigger their impact can be severely mitigated since the window of time for that to happen is super small, whereas the app impact... Oh, my timer didn't start. Sorry. Okay. Since the window is super small, fairness is a voter constituent of any competitive activity. Competing interpretations, reasonability is arbitrary and begs the question of what is reasonable. Drop the debate or drop the restart debate after the 1 and C, which is too late for the night to formulate a strategy. No RBI. I encourage people to debate theory and go all in on the counter which, and you should not win just for being fair. Independent of theory, this is a reason to presume negative. They have not proposed significant change to the status quo, which is their burden. Next off. Counterplan text, the United States should condition military aid to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates on bringing the U.S. into the decision-making process. That's Goldenberg 12.5, rather than selling withdrawing good support for the conflicts in Yemen. Washington should offer to remain more engaged in the Saudis' change their approach to bring the U.S. into the decision-making process. Starts with the Saudis sharing their strategic plans and taking on American recommendations for a strategy that's more viable, less dependent on airstrikes. Air will be carried out with similarity to the air war against ISIS and Syria and Iraq. This will ensure that Saudis meet a much higher standard when it comes to the laws of war. The approach we recommend is more effective and humane, given the security of the unelected, but more flexible approach in the Crown Prince, but much higher than it was 2 months ago. America should use the heightened global security and unity over the dictator list, getting Saudi Arabia to change its behavior in Yemen and save thousands of lives. Next off. U.S. counterterrorism effort operations are succeeding now, but continued pressure is key to prevent resurgent threats from ISIS and Al-Qaeda. That's Schmidt, 18 from the shelling of the loading schemes to fighters Islamic State or Al-Qaeda terrorists. That's the complex and diverse as ever. The Islamic State is adapted to setbacks. We're without continuing counterterrorism pressure. There'll be no resurgent threats. Islamic State is left on the all but territories to seize in 2014. The Islamic State will self-holds waste turning turmoil in Syria makes it harder for this fight entity to monitor terrorist fortune. We're an inflection point. American Special Operations Force continued hot operatives and U.S.-Saudi joint counterterrorism efforts are key to fighting Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Training, funding, and advisors are key. That's Biden 16. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia signed a bilateral agreement of technical counterterrorism operation. U.S. provides advisors military, also assists in training Saudi forces to official and vital counterterrorism allies, playing a leading role to solve Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. The approach can be seen in several successes against Al-Qaeda's affiliation in Yemen. Saudi Arabia plays a central role in the U.S. campaign against AQAP and about hosting a basis for drone attacks. The Saudi government response has been strong and key to significantly in fighting out terrorist financing with considerable U.S. help. And Saudi Arabia and U.S. are pursuing aggressive counterterrorism policies now. But U.S. support is key. That's Bakhar. 18 riots has become a close partner in recent years' deadly series of Al-Qaeda attacks and draws. The Saudis pursue more aggressive counterterrorism policies. Washington rather see Al-Qaeda and Islamic State where maybe turning the corner as a result of changing perceptions about its own interests and apparent shifts in the way we're approaching the counterterrorism challenge for opportunity. The United States Supreme Court's broader and deeper changes that address the long-standing American interests. The U.S. Washington will work closely with Saudi partners to track on top U.S. setting groups such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda and skip the next card. Yemen is the vital internal link. It's symbolic and conflict with massive ripple effect. The POT-17 is the Haiti government and the rebel struggle to control Al-Qaeda and Armenian police capitalize on the instability and increases present terror attacks on the terrorist groups are flourishing. Yemen's chaos happens in Yemen. You know, we affect any regional stability, disaster of U.S. interests. The fighting is symbolic and much larger story between Iran and Saudi Arabia, U.S. interests and Emirates. It must be contained in Yemen. Geostrategic imports cannot be ignored. Serious disruption of this rule could constrain the flow of the Persian Gulf and Europe and the other Western Hemisphere raise all oil prices. And one terror attack causes extinction and major power isolation. That's Jazz Boston at 12. And it is unprecedented building new nuclear technology in Northern Window inherited and improved policy choice strategy all against the nomination act of groups whose behavior suggested death blizzard and nuclear materials that have read around the globe to build more than 220,000 bombs for George Bush and Iran and to reach attempt something. And you haven't discovered bin Laden state that nuclear car nuclear was a really religious Judaism group as sympathized to nuclear scientific bureaucracies and they discuss practice and dozen briefcase bombs are available. Cut the card available. Skip the next off for now. Go to 5. The standard is maximizing the expected well-being. First is accurate specificity. 8-point government actions will inevitably involve trade-offs, so the only way to resolve conflict is by benefiting the most. Anything else would unequally prioritize one group over another. B-point, no commission is sanctioned for states if they implicitly consume culpability and regulating the public domain by creating permissions and prohibition. Means the U.S. advocate has to take a stance on preventing bad things around the globe, which means if I win the case is a good thing, that counter-terrorism practices are a good thing. That's the reason why negative. Skip the next card. The second, only consequential explains degrees of wrongness. If I break a promise made up from lunch, that's honest, but that's breaking a promise to take our dying person to the hospital. Only consequences of breaking the promise. Explain the second one is much worse than the first. And hardline rules and ethics do not make sense. Case. Some framing arguments. The role of the ballot is to determine if you have policy would have good or bad consequences. The role of the judge to make a determination of that and evaluate action through the lens of whether it conforms to a high order principle is ivory tower and a bad basis for decision making. That's Bracey 6. Reduce compensation on race side of consequence opponents equate whether the result of a particular policy desirable policy called masquerades principle of changes create the first step for which policy is not a choice from the embodiment of some higher principle. The principle becomes an end in self-reference. Outcomes components are outcomes make determination based exclusively on whether high measures include the principle of meaningful policy is replaced by high ideological change and exasperates hostility and resentment and high magnitude, low probability. First Bostrom 13. High center response for mere irritation and but over the time of future development, significant the total risk of the extreme magnitude of the value. Because even a small probability can be highly radically significant. Our species introducing entirely new risk. We have no track record of surviving consideration specific scenarios based on the position of power, and so low sale of principal consequences. We cannot understand risk problems. Precise probabilities, the probability some risk is difficult to quantify. Some plan the risk and now will expect the power outweigh the expanded benefit and uncertainty in the air. For the 6 factor dimensional probability risk, such proposed analysis indicates catastrophe has been low probability then. That's a hidden crucial flaw in conducting probability may be fairly high now. The plan, the shutdown will never end until the act does not get past a negative presumption. Gather 116, the shutdown will not end. Republicans forced side, the Trump would have faced serious backlash, and the Democrats would have faced an even stronger backlash if they agreed to fund the wall. And they don't solve any of their options. The U.S. still supplies aid to Egypt and other countries, and the coalition will continue strikes about negative presumption. And India literally says that they still give stuff to, that they still get supplies from France, and which means they would just buy more from them, which means they have literally does nothing. Now, the advantage gap does not solve much of this problem. No, 12-5 U.S. still military involved in a much more active player on the ground. Yet look, others continue to fight countries highly divided Yemen when it failed to, and there's no leadership pick up the pieces of the Houthis will be strong on the faction. Al-Qaeda remains active strength and political movement. The alliance is likely to endure a real have influence to get another one of Saudi's framework. And the plan causes Russia failing in less sophisticated attacks that result in more civilian death. As Goldenberg 12-5 walking away from the support of the Saudi little war might give you Washington the moral high ground if they'll do a little stop to killing the Saudis. The Iran establishment foot on the southern border is much more about the interest than producing U.S. weapons. They will buy Russian bombers, use lots of weapons and tactics, and civilian death and tribal family will gradually get worse. And the skip that card for now. Go to the underview arguments about like the dissets. The rationalization argument makes sense that you have to weigh specific indictive arguments and the one to see it's ridiculous to claim that all evidence one to see is obviously tainted because of one-sided sports. That's ridiculous. I can claim the same thing about your evidence. You say long chains of the diss, not a long chain throughout the arguments that they increase the probability of a terrorist attack. It's not one specific scenario, but a very increased probability which the evidence contextualizes. The cause link argument, the fact that there are some different causes or consequences just proves the diss that there's so many causes of means of having of terrorists to happen which justifies taking a multitude of approaches to resolve terrorism. Complexity is the same argument. Decision paralysis. First, you should lose for saying paralysis. That's discipline metaphors are about if you care about discourse, that's the reason why negative. Second is that it's not decision paralysis. We always evaluate the probability of different specific internal links and then weigh that probability against magnitude to make decision making. Calculus probability times magnitude is like how we make decisions. You evaluate the strength of link to the strength of impact. It's not like it doesn't cause decision and decision. Do you want a mark doc or did you get it? Okay. Sorry, it's been a while. I didn't know how much I'd get through.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, I didn't reply all on the first one. That's my bad. It's now sent to both of you. I apologize.
Let me show you.
Yeah, no problem.
Can I use your timer?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Your
yeah.
turn.
No, all good. Okay. What does it look like for the U.S. to be a part of the decision-making process?
Sure. So the evidence contextualizes this. It says that it means there's a much more restrictions placed on when we can airstrike, and a much higher standard to meet in order to carry out military operations.
So what's the standard and when can we airstrike?
Well, they raise the standard significantly. So you have to have higher intel. I don't know. I'm not in the Pentagon. Higher intel, higher quality intel, more reliable.
What does it mean for
more reliable intel that a terrorist in a certain location.
The U.S. says we have good intel now, but we still engage in the war in Yemen. So.
Yeah, but the argument is that in the status quo that's left up to the Saudis, largely to the Saudi discretion. And the U.S. conditions getting military aid. Right now we give them aid.
What does it look like to be a part of that process? Or Trump and MBS sitting in a room and they have a tally vote where one side's oh we bombed this group and the other side's no and then it's a split? Or what does it look like?
I mean maybe. It means the U.S. can withhold aid unless they're involved in making decisions about specific airstrikes and how the aid is used.
The U.S. is involved now because one, they're bombing in Yemen, and two, they sell goods specifically and engage in shared counter-terror efforts. So how did the counterplan instinctively change this?
Yes, they engage in shared counter-terror and they sell weapons, but they're not involved in the decision-making process per the war in Yemen.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go to the oh, actually, okay. So the Goldenberg evidence seems to say that they should have a take it or leave it deal. Does the counterplan, if they're not involved in the decision-making process, mean that they stop giving, that they do the plan?
Saudi Arabia can say no.
Yeah, and then there's no aid given, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's fine.
The difference is the condition.
Cool. What's the status of the counterplan?
What do you want it to be?
Condo?
I'll say it's dispo.
What's the condition?
If you read defense, I can kick it.
Okay, that's fine.
So let's go into this like Byman evidence on the DISAD.
Mhm.
It says that they signed a bilateral agreement on
Mhm.
the technical counterterrorism operation. How does the act reverse this agreement that they've already signed and are legally obligated to engage in?
Well, they go back on the agreement because they get rid of like their aid. Like they stop engaging counterterrorism efforts because they stop
Okay, where
providing.
does the DISAD qualify that counterterrorism is a part of the aid that we give to Saudi Arabia that's military rather than like
Yeah,
shared?
strategic military direction, like military partnerships. Like I'm presuming the app ends all military aid, so in the forms of like both literal weapons and like war ink time engagement.
Okay, that's fine.
And
You
you can shift. I'll probably not like that.
Okay, too bad. You say that like, that's fine. It says that Al-Qaeda attacks drove more aggressive policies. How do you reverse like the U.S. stand? Like, how does the app? Actually, that's fine. I'll take a rep.
Please stop. I have 45 left. I'll send you that.
and on case, I'll do the framing stuff on case in an overview. So you can just look up there and that'll be the answers to the like NC framing. Counterpoint to that. Okay, cool.
No, one sec.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm ready.
I'm not ready.
No worries.
Anyway, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm good to go.
Great. And on the theory argument, it'll start with a counter interpretation.
Okay.
Counter-interpretation, the affirmative may defend any military aid to Saudi Arabia and the UAE. The first thing is real-world education insofar as the app hasn't been planned yet, app hasn't been passed yet, it's just a test of inherency. So this is only an inherency claim. It's not that you lose any offense, but rather that it's good for you if it's not inherent, because then you just vote negative percentage of seconds to the pre-fiat application for the app. It's good that we discuss this. Even if it's not inherent, you have to answer my pre-fiat application as to why it's a good idea to discuss onto their evidence. On the Davis card, one is that Trump will do it, even if his senators pass a Trump's ties to Saudi Arabia, that they won't overcome, so it's not inherent. 2, the House isn't passed, so it doesn't matter. 3 is that the plan includes UAE, so it's not a non-topical affirmative, even if you buy the interpretation, then you don't just drop the debate, or you just drop the argument, because that's the only violation, and you still do the UAE for in Yemen, even if they end the war in Yemen, they still give aid for sort of defensive claims on defensive attacks on Saudi Arabia, which means that they don't justify as that part of the war in Yemen, but rather defense, which you would still supply, which should still spill over into the war in Yemen. Not only kills the negative round, 1 day increase the negative round means you can claim that it's close, also which means that the app doesn't do anything. And 2, this is just an inherency claim. This doesn't prevent you from reading sources to sets. You can just still read them, and it means that the squad weighs on case. The plan stops bombing, the campaign jumps up to peace process, withdrawing U.S. support from the world's humanitarian disaster after endorsing the ethical obligation to basic research, humanization, and utilitarian rationalization of these policies that prevents colonial violence on their assumption that the world is inevitably defined by the strategic violence compels the state filling process of neoliberalism. Anarchy is what states make, but they refuse to say the world in which non-violence is even conceivable. That's the one evidence. You can rationalize that as a reason to reject the dissent. On his framing arguments, he said that you should for active specificity. No, we say that your active specificity is bad because you view the world through realism. Our cards answer this. You consider we say realism is bad as self-fulfilling prophecy because the world's only violent as far as you see it as. You say that there's a degrees of wrongness. So we can say that there's degrees of wrongness, i.e. the war in Yemen is wrong. We say that your utilitarian calculus doesn't take this into account, which means that it's bad because it doesn't understand that this is a wrong action and justifies it through these small probability scenarios. You say say that the shutdown means that you vote on presumption, but the shutdown will never lend to fiat, too durable. You should grant this durable fiat that the AF will pass. You say that they buy from Britain fans know our evidence to really specific on this that they can't get buy enough weapons or specific weapons or training enough to solve. You say that the AF doesn't solve because of the binding card, but when we stop aid from the UAE, so we solve the rejection of the card discussion. 2, the AF is trying to write 3, this card says it's guilty of realism. We say it's bad, only imagine balance situations. The problem doesn't count for citing militarism. Drugs extremism. Yet before, if we end the war immediately, at least the horrible humanitarian crisis is over. You say Russia failed, but this is drug inflation banner 515. This is drug inflation must have never demonstrated any interest during the war in Yemen. Situation not comparable to Syria. When Russia's been an ally, no impact. Middle East is already authoritarian. Russia's the head of U.S. especially in Saudi Arabia, Romani. 17. Russia condemns Saudi Arabia, strikes and express support for UN arms embargo. You say the role values policy is good consequences. We agree that you should evaluate the policy action, but since FIA doesn't actually happen, it's just a justification of the discourse we use in the plan. You say you should evaluate high activity and low probability, but this doesn't take into account when link chains are multiplied by each other onto the counterplan. One self-deficit, the decision-making process doesn't matter. We're still involved in the decision-making process because we involved in counterterrorism. 2, this is what this happened. Now we're in arms. 3, pull out is uniquely key. That's the AF evidence. 4, permanent the counterplan. This results in the same thing as if the AF pulls out. It's not severance because it would just result in the same thing as the AF, or it wouldn't solve because we wouldn't pull out of the war in Yemen. Onto the decided human rights, structuring human rights, reference or hate, fight terrorism, hot before history shows when side shows human rights, again, neither terrorist organization fighting easier, reading about those who human rights, valid human rights violations, cut there all, or actually other mentioned about them, international corporation, public support, cut there also. Your own evidence says that they have a legal obligation to continue with counterterrorism, so this doesn't matter. So we looked at 3 is that Yemen uniquely causes terrorism because people are driven to extremism by not supporting government force. The case always because it leads to the impacts of terrorism in the first place. There's there's still cooperation on things such as terrorism. That's not aid, but rather sharing of intelligence, which is still happening in the world to the AF.
Okay, I had 235. What was the 4th argument on the terror dissent?
I stuffed them, so let's see. So the first argument is the card, the second was the Yemen argument, the third is that the Beiman evidence specifically says that we have a legal obligation.
The 4th one I'm just asking.
The 4th argument was that leads to the, it was the realism stuff on the case page.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one card, sorry. Sorry, I'm sending it. The card says like inter X. I'm not reading inter, obviously. It's just a T card.
Can you tell me the order?
Yeah. It's going to be topicality, the counterplan, the terror disad, and then the case.
Sorry.
In case you like framing, then the plan. T, counterplan, disad, and case.
I'll let you know when I do that.
I'm good to go.
Not going for topicality, there's no RBI, which means there's no offense of the two we are. Now the conditions counterplan. First, judge gets the counterplan plan with the permutations. The logical extension of conditions. Actually, wait, I said this, but never mind. The counterplan. The conditions counterplan solves 100% of the 99% of the affirmative insofar as it places a condition on the side to significantly alleviate human rights condition, which means it's view this in terms of sufficient framework that can sufficiently alleviate human rights. That's the reason why the decision not way I'm managing now. Now the counterplan properly needs to make it significantly harder for Saudi Arabia to airstrike. Makes the U.S. has to be significantly involved in the decision-making process for where to airstrike and how to allocate the resources that they receive. Otherwise, they can just pull it now. The argument first you say they're still involved, first significantly less involved, and you say they're still involved now in the status quo. No, they're not on the capacity that would be in the world of the counterplan. You say that they would just pull out. No, they would not. Even if they do pull out, that means that it achieves the same goal as the app. And if they do not, the reason why it still significantly alleviates the burden. You say the permutation of the counterplan is not the same. The condition is obviously different in Saudi Arabia. Can just say they do want to continue getting A, which means the counterplan is different from the affirmative. Do not about a permutation of the counterplan. This is also functionally defense when you should judge K form under disposition under dispo insofar as K if you're a defense and you're making a permutation to do the counterplan. Like protect the 2 and R on shitty permutations. It's obviously not the same as the affirmative. The terrorist set. U.S. counterterrorism operations are succeeding now, but there's still room for kind of ISIS to research. They've lost most of their land, but they're still on the range now. They're still looking to actively strike back on and regain research in the region. When U.S. counterterrorism efforts are keeping them down now. Strategic partnerships with Saudi Arabia and UAE, among other countries, are specifically necessary to resolve counterterrorism efforts. The intelligence they gain through Saudi Arabia joint counterterrorism partnerships, specifically ISIS, things like joint training, funding, and advisory capacity, are all significant and significant resources that the U.S. needs in the region to fight counterterrorism. Otherwise, the impact is massive. Yemen is the vital internal link. That is the battleground where groups are looking to seize territory and looking to turn influence. One terrorist attack causes massive structural violence and extinction. It's a major power escalation. As far as people would view it as coming from not from terrorists, but coming from other countries. Nuclear terrorism is a thing in real now, which you have not answered the event. The disad turns now is the case versus magnitude. Nuclear war would cause tons of famine for people all across the globe, and that would affect way more people. So like I said, it turns the case. Terror pressures Saudi Arabia to get more arms from other countries because they see the region is incredibly unstable, especially with the groups seizing more and more control in Yemen, which means they would still turn to other countries like France and Britain for supplies that would not simply end the war due to continued terror attacks. Even if they end in the short term, eventually, once the humanitarian crisis is over, there'll be a new humanitarian crisis when they need to crack down further on terrorism operations and result their own methods. It's better if the U.S. is involved and not involved at all, because they still have to deal with terrorism just with their own ways, which the affirmative says are specifically brutal, which is the reason why I wouldn't necessarily highlight the case now. The response to the Hoffman argument, I group this with the third argument about how human rights claims solved and how they will crack down. No, you do not turn the case. They remove the capacity to target already radicalized people, to target people, even if it causes slightly more radicalization. Most people are already incredibly radicalized against the West, and they remove the capacity to target leaders at all. So once currently radicalized leaders become leaders in the plan race, there's literally no way to stop them, which means it does not solve the case. But you say legal obligation continue. Obviously, you plan to override this. Durable fiat avoids the shutdown. Durable fiat also means that you would overturn strategic partnerships. Right? Also, plan necessarily entails any strategic partnerships. The fifth argument that is not A is ridiculous. It's obviously A. That's Council on Foreign Relations. Military aid goes towards helping allies provide military equipment, training, personnel, funding, peacekeeping, narcotics programs, as well as non-proliferation and counterterrorism efforts. You've read no evidence on this question. The app always contextualizes it as well. Here's a line from the app, if I can find the doc. Without American intelligence, the logistics, training, and equipment decided war would have fallen apart long ago. That's from your solvency evidence, obviously between the firms, obviously counterterrorism efforts. Now you say this question with the impact calculus. No, I'll do that on the case page. The plan. The Bracey evidence and answers the entirety of the affirmative. The affirmative is ivory tower philosophy. So people do not have the people who are actually suffering don't have the luxury of appearing to them high order moral principle and would not care how the U.S. justifies the plan. If you were someone suffering in Yemen, you would not care what the U.S. has done. This is ivory tower philosophy. Allows people to sidestep actually important questions. Obviously, it makes sense to hold the moral high ground when terrible things are happening all over the world. As you can see, there's not convention sanction for state. They have in the states assume culpability. So if something horrible happens, the U.S. has the obligation to stop that. If I went to the world without U.S. presence, the worst means we have an obligation to do so, which was conceded from the one and the Bracey evidence. You say it's colonial violence and charter after affirmative. Obviously not the case. You should not do terrible things. We know that they're going to be bad. It's not realism, which is logical predictions based on their. You have to win actual index in the NT, not just claim everything. Oh, realism is bad and mean that index takes out all of the NT away. Strength of link back to these different framing mechanisms. Obviously, the risk that managing matters is the reason why you negative. You can see the large majority of the dissent, whereas the case has almost no solvency, which gets you to many. You say it's the reason to reject the dissent. No, it's not a colonial mindset. First, this is a fallacy. That coloniality has used this to justify terrible things. It's not a reason why that itself is bad. People can justify things based on it. Does not mean the justifications for them are themselves bad. Also, you have to win the plan to get it. That was conceded. That was conceded from the one and two, which Bracey contextualized. Now the Boston argument says the high value low probability first. You can see that we can make logical predictions based on link change, and the fact that we don't know the thing, don't know how exact probability something is not a reason to discredit. The fact that we cannot exactly predict something means we can't describe. Means we can't describe the independent of that. The Terra set is not based on specific link chain, which is your only indictment from the 1AR. The Terra set is based on the probability of a terror attack occurring with or without U.S. presence. All you have to do is be able to say that it is more likely there's a terror attack without U.S. presence and without U.S. counterterrorism efforts than in the world without that. That is sufficient to vote negative given the magnitude that you've conceded in the 1 and 2. It's not sufficient to just claim that the one answers all this when you've not done any of that work yourself. Now the case proper, too much of this was conceded. France and Britain was definitely installed 100% of the affirmative independent. That Russia fell into this side was not handled well. All the foreign inflation argument just said that Russia's not actively looking to do it now. Yes, Russia is not doing it now. Biden said that Russia is looking to expand their influence in the status quo. If the U.S. pulls up, that's a significant opportunity for Russia, for Russia to gain influence over the region, especially with things like Syria. You say Syria is different. The card is literally an assertion. These have all the insolvency and this card in the app are literally two sentences. Do not say anything at all. So you're not justifying U.S. dependency or reason why the plan would solve any of the affirmative offense that you were going for. Obviously, the region is still super unstable, and the U.S. pulling out would not be able to resolve any of that. Given that other countries would fill in their looking earnings elsewhere. Even if you immediately said some of the humanitarian crises, the counterplan also does that, which means that if you think, which means that you're looking for a short-term relief, the counterplan will resolve the majority of that. Well, the distance would still away. Like it's ivory tower to just say like we can't do anything because that's a colonial mindset when there's actual people suffering, and you should evaluate the logical consequences of the plan versus the counterplan.
Okay, I have 45 seconds. Orders, case counterplan dissent. Case will start with no.
No, one second. You said case counterplan dissent?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Okay. Everyone ready?
The plan stops the bombing campaign and jumpstarts the peace process, withdrawing use support for Yemen. The arbitrator, he says the situation could get worse, but no, you're conceding evidence coming out of the EAC how millions of people are dying in this situation, and the only thing, and we have an ethical obligation to do the app. We'll go on the line by line. You extend the Russian villain arguments, but one is you're conceding that
that there's no war in why it's different from Syria, but it clearly is because they're allied with Iran there, because Russia's allied with Iran there, and it's against Saudi Arabia, so it would be clearly different. Also, that doesn't answer my claim about it being fast inflation. Second is that you're conceding that there's no impact to this. The Middle East is already authoritarian, so some sort of small increase doesn't matter at all. There's no real impact. The third argument you're conceding is the extension of Dowd, which gives specifically in the case of arms sales, etc., how there can be no trade-off with Russia, etc., because they don't have sufficient the sufficient military capability to actually prevent it. Also, you've also considered that it's a question of signaling with the AF, where the U.S. signals that it is in support. I'm not going to go for any of the pre-field advantages to the AF. I'll just extend the you should evaluate high probability scenarios, because the link chain is able to switch small unit extinction scenarios onto the counterplane. I'm going to go for perm to the counterplane if it results in the same thing as the AF, and then there's no sort of severance because it's the exact same thing as the AF either, or if it doesn't result in the same thing as the AF, then it doesn't solve the AF because there's no sort of signaling and no sort of pull-out. You say that it achieves the same goals as the AF, exactly, that's the reason why you justify doing the perm. You say that the conditions are different. No, we say that your conditions are a bad thing because just some abstract participation in the peace also doesn't solve any sort of pulling out because they still get to use those weapons. The second argument is that the U.S. currently supports the war in Yemen, so if they were participating in the decision-making process, then they would just support it. That's conceded. Coming out of the 1AR, you say that judge kick, but you shouldn't do judge kick because this forced me to debate two different worlds, especially in the 2AR where the AF's time crunch. You've also conceded that the pull-out is key. You say it solves the entire representative of the AF, but it definitely doesn't go into the disad. I'll go for Yemen leads to terrorism. That's specific evidence coming out of the 1AR is it leads to more radicalization. You say that you win the capacity to target leaders, but leaders don't matter. It's just the people who executed her, the suicide bombers. You say that people are already radicalized. This is definitely not true. We say that an increase in terrorism is what stops from responding to threats because threats are always changing, which means that we need more. Which is the reason counterterrorism is necessary because threats are always changing. So if you have more people radicalized, then that's net worse. You say that the Council of Foreign Relations says that counterterrorism is a part of it, but when you've mislined this card, it says that it's foreign military aid and security aid, which means it's not a part of that too, is that you've conceded that the U.S. still has counterterrorism efforts absent cooperation with Saudi Arabia, so this still doesn't matter. We'd be able to solve this. You say that the Carter overturns a durable fiat means we overturn a legal obligation. No, this isn't true because the AF isn't a part of counterterror. Even then, we just decrease military aid going forward. Not that we have an obligation for things we've already fulfilled. So, case outweighs. You're already killing millions of people. Turns the disad because it leads to more terrorism. Good round.
What's the card that says Russia doesn't have the capability, or Russia doesn't have
The Dowder and Lindsay evidence, and the card, two cards I read.
Yeah, I got those.